Now, everyone, let's take a look at relative clauses. So, in the previous lesson, we talked about how relative clauses are like adjectives. Okay, so relative clauses are clauses that give us information about nouns. Okay, so they function like an adjective. He is the man who you saw yesterday. So this information is about the noun. Okay, now at the beginning of these clauses, we start off with a relative pronoun or a relative adverb. It's not really important that you know which is which, but all you need to know is the ones that we use: who, where, whose, which, why, where, and when. These are the commonly used ones. Of course, there are others, but for writing, this is all we need. Okay. Now, let's take a look at the position of these relative clauses. Can you see the difference between number 1 and number 5 in terms of the position of the relative clause? Okay, all of these are relative clauses because they start with a relative pronoun or relative adverb. Okay, so all these are relative clauses, which are one of the complex sentences. Now, what I want you to do is look at number 1. Look at the relative clause in number 1 and look at the relative clause in number 5. What is the difference in position? The position of the relative clause. Okay, some of you are saying we have 2 clauses. Yes, we have 2 clauses. He is the man who you saw yesterday is another clause. And number 5, we have 2 clauses as well. Why we went is one clause. The reason was to shop is another clause. So we have 2 clauses there. I was asking about the position. So let's look at number 1. He is the man. So we have he is the subject, is the verb, and the man is the object here, yeah? So here we have the relative clause. So the relative clause here is not coming after the subject. Okay, it's coming at the end of the sentence. Now, when we look at number 5, the reason why we went. So here we have the relative clause is coming after the subject of the sentence. Okay, so the relative clause can come at the end of the sentence, after a noun at the end of the sentence, or it can come after a noun at the beginning of the sentence, which is a subject. So relative clauses, they can come anywhere in a sentence. They can come at the beginning after a subject, or they can come at the end of the subject. All they need is a noun. So we can place relative clauses in any position as long as we have a noun to give information about. Okay, so here we have the relative clauses coming at the end of the sentence. And here we have a relative clause coming, giving information about the subject of a sentence. Can you find one relative clause, one more relative clause? Can you find one more relative clause that comes after the subject? Number 7, okay. Okay. Number 7. Yes, definitely number 7. The day when I met him was very cold. Okay, so the day when I met him was very cold. Yes. Abu Bakr is asking about whom. Of course, you can use whom, but it is a little bit old-fashioned, and who is more commonly used these days. Yeah, I have the same issue with whom. I would just recommend that you do not use whom. Further on in the lesson, I will explain when it is possible to use it in the place of who. So let's look at the pronouns. So we have who for people, which for objects and animals, that. So that here, we could use it. So we could use that in the place of who and which. Okay. With a type of clause, a type of relative clause that we call a defining relative clause. We will talk about this later on in the lesson. Whose for possession. And then we have the relative adverbs, where, why, and when. Where for places, why for reasons, and when for time. These are the most common ones. Of course, there are more, but these are all that you need, really. There are two types of relative clauses. So we have defining relative clauses, and we have non-defining relative clauses. We even got Shakespeare up from his grave to say defining or non-defining is the question. Okay. Now, instead of me telling you the difference between defining and non-defining, I'm going to let you do all the hard work. Okay. So I have two sentences here. I like to tease my students with these sentences. And what I want you to do is look at these two sentences. He loves his wife who is beautiful. He loves his wife, comma, who is beautiful. One is a defining relative clause and one is a non-defining relative clause. In terms of form, what do we have? The difference is just the comma here. So we have a difference in comma. This is the form. But what I'm looking at is the difference in meaning. So what, well, not difference, let's say differences. What differences are there in meaning between these two sentences? I'll let you guess. What you think the differences are. And after you finish, we'll talk about them. So I'll give you a minute. Okay. I have some good answers here. Let's see. One is saying number 1 is defining. Number 2 is non-defining. Aha. Number 2 is non-defining. Number 1 is defining. Okay, yeah. So we have defining, the first one, and the second one is non-defining. And we're going to take a look at the meaning, the difference in meaning between the two. So we have some good guesses here. Okay. Satish is saying the information after the comma isn't that important. Okay. I think some of you have got it. Let's take a look at the difference between the two. Okay. Number 1 is what we call a defining relative clause. A defining relative clause is a clause that gives us information that is necessary for understanding, right? So if we don't have this information, we can't understand. So if we have a man and he has more than one wife, which is common in, well, not very common, but which happens in, you know, a lot of the Middle East. And we just said he loves his wife, and we know that this man has 3 wives or 4 wives, and we say he loves his wife. The meaning would be incomplete because we don't know, like, he loves his wife. He has 4, so that means nothing. So the sentence isn't understandable. We can't understand the sentence. We need more information. So defining relative clauses give us necessary information for understanding. Okay. So he loves his wife who is beautiful. This means, number 1, because we're defining the wife, it means that he must have more than one wife. He must have. Number 2, his other wives are not beautiful, because we're saying he loves one of them and she's beautiful, right? And the third point that we must know is that he loves his wife who is beautiful, which means he doesn't love his other wives. Okay, so there's a lot of information that comes out of this sentence, and you see the comma makes a big difference between the two. Now, let's take a look at the second sentence. He loves his wife, comma, who is beautiful. Now, this person only has one wife. He loves his wife. And what are we doing here after the comma? We are adding information about the noun, of course, because that is what relative clauses do. Relative clauses give more information about nouns. But this information is not necessary. Okay, so the information, if we drop it, it wouldn't change the meaning. So he loves his wife. He only has one wife. He loves his wife. Fantastic. The meaning is complete. Okay, so that is the main difference. He loves his wife. He has one wife. He loves her, and his wife has additional information, extra information. His wife is beautiful. Okay. With non-defining relative clauses, we can drop these clauses and not change the meaning whatsoever. What would happen to this man? I'm not sure many of the females would like me to call him a poor man, but what would happen to this man if we put a comma here? Let's see the answer in the chat box. What would happen to the man if we put a comma there? Or what would happen to the man if we dropped the clause? If we dropped the clause, who is beautiful? Or we put a comma after wife. He will only have one wife, yeah. Wow. You see what an effect a comma has on a sentence, yeah? So if we put a comma, he would lose his 3 wives, yeah? And he'd only have one wife there. Okay. Yeah, so that's basically the idea, the difference between the two clauses, defining and non-defining. Defining giving us essential information, and non-defining giving us extra information that we do not need for understanding. Let's take a look at these 2 sentences quickly before we move on. to other parts of defining non-defined relative clauses. So we have the staff who are at the till, this is the till. Yeah, I think this is a British word that a lot of you don't understand. So the staff at the till, the ones who are at the till, okay, the staff at the till are happy to help you. The staff who are at the till, comma, who are at the till, comma, are happy to help you. So very quickly, after it should be clear now, let's comment on the difference in meaning. Hiba says 1 specific and 2 all staff. All the staff, okay. Who are at the till is extra information. I don't understand that because we have 2 sentences. Okay. We have Hatton joining. Oh, it's a really bad time to join now after all that we've covered. It's a bit late. We're 1 hour into the lesson now, so I hope you can benefit from something. Number 2 is extra information. Okay. Okay. So here we have, let's look at these 2 sentences here, yeah? The staff who are at the till. So which staff are we talking about here? We're talking about the staff at the till. So this specifically means that we have some staff at the till and we have some staff that are not at the till. Okay. Which of the staff are happy to help? The staff who are at the till. And which staff are not happy to help you? The staff who are not at the till. Okay, so this is not very good, is it? Number 2, the staff who are at the till. So we have a comma here, so we know that all the staff are at the till, are happy to help you. So number 1, all the staff are at the till. And number 2, all the staff are happy to help you. Okay, the staff who are at the till. Excellent. Yes, Siba, yes, your answer was correct. I think Mona as well, she got that. Okay, I'm going to explain them for Ionella. She wasn't sure of the meaning. Now, if you were in a supermarket, which sign would you like to see? Would you like to see sign number 1 or sign number 2? I know which sign I would like to see. The majority are saying number 2. Salih is saying number 1 and Ionella is saying number 1. But everyone else is saying number 2. And I'm going to say that I would prefer as a customer to see number 2. Now, a quick question. When you go into a shop, do you want the people in the shop to be happy to help you? Or do you want the people in the shop not to be happy to help you? I don't know. Put your answer in the chat box. Would you like them to be happy to help you? Or would you like the staff not to be happy to help you? Help me, help me. Obviously to help me, to be happy to help. Sure, happy. Okay, so we're getting some good comments here, yeah? So in number 1, Okay. In number one, are all the staff happy to help you? Are the staff happy to help you in number one? No. No. We're getting a lot of no's here. Okay. So if you want the staff to be happy to help you, then you would prefer number two. Okay. So of course, yeah. So of course, in sentence number one, there are some staff that want to help you and there are some staff that don't want to help you. But in sentence number two, all the staff, they are at the till and they're happy to help you. So if you have a question, you can go to the till and you say, excuse me, I'm looking for this product. And the staff there, they're just happy to help you. So they'll go with you and they'll help you out. Okay, so that sounds a lot better. This mistake was actually taken. It was a photograph of this grammatical mistake. Of course, some people, they do not have anything good to do in their lives other than look for grammatical mistakes and take photos of them. So I'm sure this mistake made somebody's day and put a smile on someone's face. Let's move on. So of course we have number one, there are staff at the till, staff at other places. Staff who are not at the till aren't happy to help. The staff who are at the till are happy to help. And number two, all the staff are at the till, all the staff are happy to help. Okay, so let's move on. I'm just going to try, can I move this up a little bit because it's not clear? Aha, I think it's clear now. Okay, relative pronouns. So relative pronouns are not always relative pronouns. You have relative adverbs like why and so on. They can be the subject of the relative clause. Okay, or they could be the object of the relative clause. So here we have who, which, and that. They can be the subject or they can be the object. Now, when we look at this relative clause, I've underlined the relative clauses. Who I met, which was very happy, that John saw yesterday. Now, when we look at these relative clauses, these three relative clauses, and we look at the pronoun, can you work out if the pronoun who, which, or that is the subject of the relative clause or is the object of the relative clause? What do you think? Put your answers in the chat box. Okay, some of you are saying number one, the relative pronoun who is the subject. Okay, not all of you are agreeing. You don't agree. Okay, some of you are saying. Okay, so we're getting mixed answers here. Some of you are saying they're subjects and some of you are saying they're objects. Okay, that's good. So that means that some of you will learn, something from this lesson because I'm getting some incorrect answers here in response to the questions. So let's take a look at the sentence. Now, how do I know if something is the subject of a sentence or not? The subject is followed by a verb. Okay, so if something is a subject, it's directly after it, we're going to have a verb. Sometimes we might have adverbs, but in general, as a general rule, when we have a subject, the next word after it is going to be a verb. Okay, so when I look at number one and I say, who I, is I a verb? What do you think? Is I a verb? You're saying no. I'm getting no's. No, 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 no. So this pronoun, this relative pronoun, is not a subject. It's not a subject. Yes, the relative clause, the clause, altogether, the clause is a relative clause of the subject of a sentence, but when we look at the clause itself and we look at the relative pronoun, we're going to find that the relative pronoun is not the subject. It is the object. Now, what is the subject? Can you put in the chat what the subject of the verb met is? What is the subject? No? Okay, yes. Some of you are saying the subject is I. So here we have the relative clause. Who I met. We have met is the verb. So what comes before the verb? We have I. I met. So I is the subject of the clause who I met. Okay, so the relative pronoun can be one of two, or the relative, this relative pronoun can be a subject or it can be an object. So in this sentence, it's not the subject of the verb met. Okay, number two, can you tell me, number two, is the relative pronoun which, is it a subject or is it an object? Number two, is number two a subject or is it an object? The relative pronoun which? Which? Okay. Okay. So excellent. So now we're getting everyone saying it is a subject. Please, can you guys comment in the comments in the chat and tell me how you knew that which is, how did you know that which is a subject? How do you know? How can you be sure? Thank you. Okay, it comes before a verb. So now we know. Okay. Okay, excellent. Okay, everyone. So let's take a look at number three. Number three, I played with the boy that John saw. Is that a subject or is that an object? Okay, so the majority of students are saying that is an object. Thank you. Okay, very quickly, can you tell me the reason? Can you tell me the reason why that is an object? Can you tell me why that is an object? Thank you. Okay. Some of you saying it's followed by a noun, but I would like to say it's not followed by a verb. I think that's better to say it's not. There is no verb after it. Okay. So with number 2, thank you. So with number 2, we have which is followed by a verb, so it's a subject. In number 1, which is followed by a pronoun, which means it is not a subject. Here we have that is followed by John and not a verb, so it means that is an object. Okay, of course, who is referring to the boy, which is referring to the dog, and that is referring to the boy. Okay. Okay. Now, with who, which, and that, when who, which, and that is the object of the sentence, when who, which, or that is the object of the sentence, we can omit it. We can drop it. Okay. So, who I met yesterday, the boy I met was very kind. Number 2, the dog which was very hungry. Now here we said which is the subject. So we said which, we cannot drop it when it's the subject. Which, who, and that, we cannot drop them when they are the subject of the sentence. So if we said the dog was very hungry, ate all the food, that would be incorrect in English. Number 3, that is an object, so it's okay. We can drop it. Now you might say, why do we need to drop it? Why would we drop it? Sometimes when you have too many relative pronouns, who, which, you don't want to overuse these cohesive devices. So they're called linkers. They're a type of a linker because they link our ideas together. So we don't want to use them too many times. So sometimes if we have too many which, that, and who, we might want to drop them when they are the subject of the sentence. Okay, so let's move on. So here we also have a common mistake. The boy, who I met him. So here, who is the object referring to the boy. So when we have the object, the relative pronoun as the object, the relative pronoun takes the place of the object. So who I met, and we drop the object when who, that, and which is referring to is used as an object. The boy who I met was very kind. So this is a common mistake. When who, that, and which is an object, sometimes people repeat the object. And I think this is a translation thing. Some people, they translate from one language to another language, and in their language, they have a pronoun. So in English, when they translate it into English, they repeat the pronoun. But in English, when who, that, and which is an object, it takes the place of the object. So the boy I met him would turn into the boy I met was very kind. Yes, definitely a literal translation, and many students seem to write. Yes, many students seem to write this object pronoun because in their languages they have this object pronoun, but in English we don't. So when who is an object, it takes the place of an object. Okay, And the same when which and who is the subject, it takes the place of the subject. So many students still say the dog, which it was very hungry. Also, I think this is a literal translation. So when which is the subject, it takes the place of the subject. So which is talking about the dog, so we do not need to repeat it again. The dog, which was very hungry, ate all the food. Yeah? My wife saw the car, which was stolen. So we don't need to say which it was stolen, because which is talking about the car. So when which is the subject, it takes the place of the subject. And as we said, when the relative pronoun is the object, it takes the place of the object. So these are common mistakes that I see in IELTS writing when I am correcting papers. Now, that can replace which and who. So we can use them interchangeably in defining relative clauses. So defining relative clauses are the clauses without the commas or the comma. Okay. But with non-defining relative clauses, we cannot use that to replace which or who. Okay. So here, the boy who I met was very kind. The boy that I met was very kind. It's the same. Now, why would you want to change them? Possibly if you've written who too many times and you just want to use that, that is a possibility. Of course, you could drop it when it's a subject like this. Here we have, I saw the car which was stolen. I saw the car that was stolen. So these are just 100%. We could use them, for either. Now here we have a comma. So after a comma, we cannot use that. This is a very common mistake. Even the essays that I shared with you, the 7 essays that you wrote, some of the students have wrote comma, comma, that. So it is a common mistake. So with which and that, we don't want to use that as a, which and who, we don't want to use that as a replacement in non-defining relative clauses. Okay, which, we can use which to talk about the, where to talk about the location of a place. But when we use where, we have to drop the preposition. I walked by the school where I studied as a child in. So we don't want to say where I studied as a child in, because where is talking about the location, so it's going to take the place of the preposition. I walked by the school where I studied as a child. This is correct. Number 2, this is the building where your father taught at, is going to be, this is the building where your father taught. Now, you can, of course, use which to talk about places. But when we use which to talk about places, we need to make sure that we are putting the preposition, because which does not take the place of the preposition. It's not like where. Where takes the place of the preposition, but which doesn't take place of the preposition. Okay, it's up to you which one you use, whether you use which or whether you use where, but just be careful. Just be careful. With which, we add the preposition, and with where, we drop it. Okay, this is a very, very important part, because we said part of grammar is punctuation. Now, when we have a non-defining relative clause, we need to make sure that we have a comma before the non-defining relative clause starts, and we have a comma at the end of the non-defining relative clause. Okay, so the relative clause here, the non-defining relative clause is here. My grandmother, comma, who is 82, comma, goes swimming every day. So this non-defining relative clause, we could drop it and it wouldn't make much of a difference. My grandmother goes swimming every day. Okay, and I know some of you might say, oh, you might have two grandmothers. Your father has a mother and your mother has a mother. Yes, but you know, if somebody only has one grandmother, you know, then we could use it as a non-defining relative clause, you know. So my grandmother, comma, who's 82, comma, goes swimming every day. So here we start the relative non-defining relative clause with a comma, and we finish the non-defining relative clause with a comma. The second one, the house, comma, which was built in 1800, comma, has just been opened to the public. So we started the non-defining relative clause with a comma and we finished it with a comma to separate it. Now, with the third sentence, it's different because the non-defining relative clause comes at the end of a sentence. So when it comes at the end of a sentence, we finish every sentence in the English language with a full stop. We don't finish sentences with commas. Okay. Now, a common mistake that I find is students will start the non-defining relative clause with a comma and then they will not finish it. So the non-defining relative clause will start, but it won't finish. But this is a mistake. So we need to separate non-defining relative clauses from the independence clause. So here we have a separation, it's fully separated. But here, if we only put one comma, we are not fully separating from the independence clause. Okay. Now, let's take a look at some exercises. I'm really sad some of you had to leave, but here are some exercises for us to do. I'll just give you 2 minutes to take a look at the exercises and then we'll do them one at a time. If you want, you can comment on the sentence, the first sentence. Okay, now let's take a look at, sentence number 1. He loves his mother, who is very kind. So what is the mistake with this sentence? I think some of you have, number 1, we need a comma. Some of you saying we need a comma, who is. Okay, a quick question. How many mothers does a person have? How many mothers does a person have? Can you have 2 mothers, 3 mothers, 4 mothers, or just one? Okay. Okay. So we can only have one mother here. So this information is not necessary. So if we just say he loves his mother, it would be completed meaning. When we say he loves his mother, who is very kind, this is definitely, you know, strange. So we could put a comma and put who is very kind. So this is what we need to do for number one. He loves his mother, comma, who is very kind. Now, of course, because this comes at the end of the sentence, we're going to finish with a full stop, and we're not going to finish with a comma. Okay, now let's take a look at number two. I played football with the boy who he is from France. So what's wrong with this sentence? I played with football with the boy who he is from. Okay. Definitely, yes, definitely. So we have who he, we need to drop he from the sentence, yeah. Okay, good. Okay, number three, I saw the shop where we bought the book in. Number three, I saw the shop where we bought the book in. Excellent. Some of you are saying drop in, drop in. Is there another alternative? Is there something else we could do? Or is it just drop in? Could we do something else? Thank you. Thank you. Okay. Yeah. Some of you said put which, and some of you put that. Yeah, that and which, they're okay. They are, you know, interchangeable. Yeah, definitely. So we could say, I saw the shop where we bought the book and dropped the in, or I saw the book shop which we bought the book in. Very good. Okay. Number four, the rats ate the food, comma, that was in the basement. I'm having some good answers. I think yeah. So you say no, no comma, no comma. No comma. Yes. Yes. Definitely no comma. But, you know, we could put which. Change that to which. Okay. Or, as you said, guys, we could, you know, just change, drop the comma and we would be fine. Okay. So we have more than one option here. Okay. Number five, I ate the chocolate, which I love it. Okay. Some of you saying drop the comma. Some of you saying drop it. Okay, which is, you know, definitely correct. We don't want to have it because we have which is an object here. I is the subject, so which takes the place of the object. Yeah. So I ate the chocolate, comma, which I love. Now, if we drop the comma here, it means that there's more than one chocolate and you're being specific which chocolate that you ate. So it's okay with a comma. I ate the chocolate means there was one chocolate, I ate it. And, you know, and you love that piece of chocolate. But if you want, and you want to remove the comma, you can do, of course, but it would just mean that there were a number of chocolates and you ate only one of them and you're telling them the specific one. Okay. 6, I went to the school which I went as a child. Ah, okay. Yeah, it just sounded really extra strange to me, so I was a bit disturbed by it. So number 6, what can you think of? Ah, where? Yeah, yeah, definitely. Definitely. We could put where. I went to the school where I went as a child. Or maybe, you know, I could have put studied here. I think the verb study would have been better, but anyway. Grammatically, we need where, yeah? Or we could add the preposition which I went to as a child. Okay, so we could add the preposition to, or we could change which to where. Very good. Sometimes students think of answers that I don't think of, so it's good then. Number 7, my uncle who lives in Spain is coming to visit me next week. What's wrong with that? Okay. Okay, excellent, excellent. Yes, comma after Spain. My uncle who lives in Spain, comma, comma, comma. We need to separate the dependent clause from the independent clause. So that, yeah. Just a quick question here, just to see if you understand. Where is the independent clause in this sentence here? Where is the independent clause in this sentence? Where is the independent clause in this sentence? Thank you. Thank you, Mona. Thank you. Thank you, Hiba. Okay. Now, remember, guys, what I told you. A clause is a subject and a verb. And we said an independent clause is a clause that is complete in meaning and it doesn't need anything from anyone. Okay, so that's what an independent clause is. So here the independent clause is, my uncle is coming to visit me. Yeah, next week. So this is the independent clause. And the dependent clause is, who lives in Spain? So this by itself, it is not complete in meaning. It doesn't have a complete meaning. It needs the independent clause to complete it. Okay, thank you for everyone who got that one right. Number 8, Peter ate the food was in the fridge. Let's see. Peter ate the food. Okay. Yes. So Peter ate the food, which or that was in the fridge. Okay. And what is the mistake? Why do we need which and that here in this sentence? What's the reason why we need it? Why is it necessary in this relative clause? Sometimes we can drop it. We said we can drop which, that, and who. No? Some people saying because it's defining. Yeah, well, sometimes in defining relative clauses, we can drop the relative pronoun. But why can't we drop it here? Amani said something. Okay. Okay, Amani has the correct answer. Which is the subject here. We can never drop which when it is the subject. We can drop that, which, and who when it is the object, but never when it is the subject. Thank you, Satish, as well. Getting that right. Number 9. An AC is something, comma, which cools the house. Okay. Yes. A lot of you are saying drop the comma. And what I'd like to know is the reason. So why should we drop this comma? What is it about the information in this? Yes. So if we put a comma here, it means that this information is additional. We don't need it. If we drop it, it's fine. So if I just say an AC is something, an AC is something, is that complete in meaning? No. We need, a definition. So when we say something, which, something, that. So this is a defining relative clause. We need a definition here. We need necessary information to understand what it is. So if an alien came from space and said to you, what is an AC? And you said an AC is something, it wouldn't be complete in meaning. We would need the definition to follow. Let's take a look at number 10. Number 10, the award was given to John, whose short film impressed the judges. Okay, thank you. Thank you for getting that one. Yeah, I thought I would sneak that comma in to see if you're awake. Yeah, definitely we need to finish off a sentence with a full stop, and we cannot finish a sentence with a comma. Thank you very much. Okay, so those are the 10 sentences. So why use relative clauses? So what's so important about these? Why should we use them? Why should we use these complex sentences? What is it about these relative clauses that will help us in IELTS? Can you think of some reasons? Thank you. Thank you, Hiba. That's one. Well, that's one reason. Yeah. Okay, to define. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, that is important. Yeah, to add information. Yes. But why would we want to do this in an IELTS exam? How would that help us? Try to be academic. We can use that in informal English as well. More information? No? Okay. Of course, so we know that why we're doing it linguistically, which is to add information or to give necessary information. Hiba gave me a good reason, which is to avoid repetition. Okay. So let's take a look at reason number 1. Reason number 1, as we said at the beginning of the lesson, yeah, uses a variety of complex structures. So this is a requirement of Band 7. If we don't have these relative clauses, we can't get a Band 7. That's as simple as it is. So we need to make sure that we do use them, here and there. Okay. Reason number 2, to fulfill the requirements of Band 7 CC. So some of you were here when we watched the lesson, or some of you attended the lesson with Amina Shibani, and she talked about cohesive devices. a range of cohesive devices. So cohesive devices are linkers, and we use who, which, and so on to link our ideas together. Okay, so we use who, which, where, and so on to refer to other things. Okay, so this is a type of a cohesive device that we use. It's called referencing. Okay, so it's one of the types of referencing. Now, also, as Hiba said, to avoid repetition. So here for a band 5 in CC, what does it say? I'm sure you all don't want a band 5. I'm sure that's not why you're attending this lesson, to get a band 5. May be repetitive because of lack of referencing and substitution. Yeah. So if we say, take a look at the sensors, the product attracted many new customers. The customers want to see more perfumes like it. So here we have customers and we have customers. So instead of repeating words again, repetition, we can use defining and non-defining relative clauses to avoid repetition here. So instead of saying customers again, we can say who. I used to live on one of those houses. They have now been demolished. So that have now been demolished. So we can use that instead of houses and other reference links. Okay. So everyone, I'd like to thank you all for being very active in this lesson. Please, if you guys are watching this on YouTube, please hit like, and if you're not subscribed, make sure you smash that subscribe button and the notification button so you don't miss any lessons like this. Thank you all for watching.